Okay, I want to bring us to a start, and a little after 3:30. I want to thank everyone for attending. This is the penultimate lecture in the Kaput Centre's Interdisciplinary Colloquium series. It's a great pleasure to introduce to you today Dr. Chris Hoadley, and I'd like to just give a brief background of Chris and his work. Chris is an Associate Professor of Educational Communications and Technology at NYU. Dr. Hoadley is also the director of Dolce Lab, the Laboratory for Design of Learning, Collaboration and Experience. Very clever acronym. He designs, builds and studies ways for computers to enhance collaboration and learning. Dr. Hoadley has degrees in cognitive science, computer science and education from MIT and UC Berkeley. Currently his research focuses on collaborative technologies and computer support for cooperative learning, CSCL, the field. Other interests include research on, through design, systems for supporting social capital and distributed intelligence, especially for educational reform, the role of informatics and digital libraries in education, the psychology of computer programming, sustainability education, and science and engineering education. Very broad and diverse background, and it's perfect for the theme of the series this year around creativity, STEM and interdisciplinarity. So I welcome Chris. He's been here all day and has been engaged in talking to various folks here around the table and the projects of the Kaput Centre, and I welcome you all. The talk, how Chris wants to stage it, is to spend 45 minutes talking to you. He's got a natural break point at that time. He welcomes short questions during that period of time for clarification purposes, and then we can open it up for questions and answers after then, or good to carry on. There's another piece to it, but we're quite informal about what's going to happen after those 45 minutes. So welcome to the Kaput Centre, Chris, and hello to everybody online.
Side note, could we just speak up a little bit more? People are saying it's a little tough to hear.
People are saying I'm not loud enough?
Yeah, which I was surprised.
Wow.
I'll try to use my my teacher voice, and I will confess this is now the third time I have signed a waiver for giving a talk that was going to be recorded and broadcast on the internet, and I was very pleasantly surprised to hear that some dear friends from Virginia Tech were going to be joining us virtually, so I'm glad you're here. But I will say that it does make me feel a little self-conscious to be to know that my words will be captured for prosperity. So I'll try to not say anything too foolish. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is less. There we go. Okay, so we've got a Skype connection now to Virginia Tech, and it seems like there's some audio echo.
Turn that off. Yeah, Deborah, we're going to turn you down. I thought it was more so for the Q&A time.
So if you mute that machine, then we won't hear my voice coming back through the internet.
But then we also want to hear their questions as well.
That's right. We'll have to unmute when they want to talk. If that's so. Okay, good. So what I wanted to share with you today, there's a few things in this talk. One is a little bit about what I've been up to in the last few years, and I really, most recently, I want to thank Stephen for the excellent introduction, and also to say that many of those things on that list that I'm interested in have been put alongside a growing interest in learning in developing countries, technology in developing countries, and so I'm going to share a little bit about the work I've been doing in that space. But it's not a very data-heavy talk. This is not me presenting the results of a study. Instead, I wanted to focus on, in addition to the work I'm doing, sort of two other things. One is the question of why do I do this kind of work, and that will come out a little more clearly as I tell you the story. But also the methods that I use. And so Chandra and I were both part of a group, the Design-Based Research Collective, that was concerned very much with trying to I'll invent a word, methodologize design-based research in a way that it could produce trustworthy results and to make clear to people what the methods were good for and what they weren't good for. And so a big part of that involves really thinking about how is it that one does DBR and what are the strengths and weaknesses of doing it in these ways, and of conducting research in that framing of design-based research as opposed to more experimental paradigms or other sorts of paradigms that might be commonplace. And so what I will try to do is walk you through some of my thinking about why I do DBR, and then the breakpoint that Stephen mentioned. After that, I have some slides that are my current working draft or current thinking about a paper I have on the drawing boards called How to Do DBR. So if that's of interest, I'm happy to get into that, and we can try and maybe turn it into practical suggestions. I'll also say that I start with this question of what is it that we're trying to improve? And the answer I'm going to, that I have queued up on the next slide is tailored perhaps towards the audience here at the Kaput Center, but could easily be rethought in a computer science audience at Virginia Tech to really think about what kind of interventions are we trying to make for people. And historically, educational interventions were focused on recall, and computer science interventions were focused on efficiency. But it's a lot more complicated than that. If I say we're trying to improve education, everybody nods their heads and says that's very good. But then you have to start thinking about what exactly is it that we're trying to improve? Comprehension, achievement, tests, achievement tests, getting ahead in life, meaning what? Greater income levels, so college attendance, getting a job, maybe having some sort of performance improvement on that job, maybe learning some skills that are useful either in personal life or in professional life. Maybe those skills are 21st century. Nobody really knows exactly what they mean by that yet. But we're only at the beginning of the 21st century, so we have plenty of time to figure it out. In short, I really want to focus us on this idea of how is it that we propose to make a difference. And sitting here in a university, we have some assumptions about how that happens. And in particular, this particular list of steps in an action model is derived very closely from things from the Department of Education or the National Science Foundation. It's a cyclical model in which research informs practice, in which we seek general ideas that hold true across a wide variety of settings in things like educational psychology studies, that we design interventions around those laws or around that knowledge. We refine those evaluations, evaluate them to make sure they work, disseminate, and then repeat. And the idea is that this will lead us to the correct model of intervention, or the best kind of education, or better achievement, or better lifelong learning, or better 21st century skills, or yada yada yada. But I'm gonna try to call into question a little bit about that by focusing on a comparison that's often drawn between education research and medical research. Throughout the Bush administration especially, there was a strong emphasis on using randomized clinical trials as the gold standard for proving the worth of some kind of intervention out in the real world. And oftentimes the comparison was drawn between educational research and medical research, and saying, well, why can't your education stuff be more cumulative and more trustworthy like the medical scientists are? So, in medical research we have treatments, we have randomized, blinded, preferably double-blinded clinical trials, and then efficacy data, which can directly inform decision-making. However, medical research has some blind spots, even in medicine. So this model, one of the challenges of this model is interaction effects. While drugs are individually tested to be safe and effective, before they're FDA approved, there's